Hello, welcome to the Book of Scrim. My name is Martin Heron and I am an artist. I've been working as an artist for approximately 30 years and I decided to set up this channel as I've been sort of reviewing some older sketchbooks. So I thought this might be a good way to document the sketchbooks and just have some other sort of visual record of the process. I've just taken some out of storage boxes, etc., and rather have them mouldering away there, I kind of like to go back over things and review them every now and again. Okay, so this is the Book of Scrim. This is what inspired the name for the channel, by the way. Now, the channel will be focused on reviewing some sketchbooks, i.e. some sketchbook tours. However, I will be trying to do other things on here in terms of like working in the sketchbooks or making other artworks, but we shall see how that goes. Okay, so let's get on with this. This sketchbook actually was made for me, especially. My daughter made it because I have been complaining profusely about the effects of lots of layers of different media in these sketchbooks, and it tends to have this effect where it starts to fan out at the end and it just gets all just goes all weird on the cover, and it's really difficult to store and keep on the shelf. So she came up with this sort of ingenious little idea to kind of let this expand as I work, and this is absolutely fantastic. My favorite of all sketchbooks, hence we're starting with this one. Okay, so Scrim. Here we are, Scrim. This is a first piece that was produced in this sketchbook, and I'll tell you about Scrim in just a moment. This was started at the end of 2022, and it went all throughout 23. I would stop off because I've been involved in lots of other projects and producing other work, and I would refer and constantly go back to and forward to the sketchbook and make new pieces. So Scrim basically is this material. It's a fiberglass mesh that's used in the building trade, and I found that I could work it, manipulate it, do things with it. Thought it would be a good thing to actually experiment with. Usually the process is in dry lining or plasterboard, putting up plasterboard walls. The two pieces of plasterboard come together. There's a channel. The scrim is laid down, just like that, and then it's skimmed over with the plaster or filler or whatever you're using, and that is where it originates in the building trade. There's more history to it, which we'll touch on later. However, I had been using it actually to revamping my studio, which was in France at the time, and I thought this would be a great material to start trying to play with. However, that is quite a long time ago. So this is the first of these pieces where I'll have come out of another sketchbook and then try to continue on, and then it'll evolve quite quickly. So yeah, the scrim then is laid down. It used to be laid in backs of sketchbooks or on plastic or card. Now I do this on glass, where I will lay down the scrim and then add some colour to it to effectively stain it. Not always, but 99% of the time that's what I do. So one of the reasons I quite like working with it so much is this layering effect, because you get to actually see through all the gaps and through the grid, and you can actually place colour or shapes in behind, and that affects what happens, the overlay of the colour, and creates quite a nice depth to the work. But it is an ongoing experimental process. It never really does end. Now, some of these pieces I will have taken and made up a little bit bigger. There are some quite large pieces that have been produced. Um, so this is just kind of like to kind of document what actually happened at this point throughout this period of time with the scrim. So here it's quite haphazardly laid down, but what sort of unites it is this sort of circular piece that's been cut out of the middle. And I'll often use these again. You'll see these turn up, the pieces that are cut out, and they'll form and be formed into another piece. So it's a bit, in a way, some of these can go past quite quickly, but a lot of these pieces, it actually requires a little bit of time to sit and look and kind of consider what is actually happening within the work. And sometimes it's not really easy to work out some of them, as you will see, no doubt. So yes, here's some of the circles that were cut out and kind of reused and reworked. So it's it is a process of going back and forward each time. So again, you'll kind of see where I've kind of went and revisited that at the start, where those circles were in, and on the pieces near the start of the book. But here now they're starting to come away from the piece of work kind of thing coming out of the outside. So it kind of breaks up this rigid rectangle. So yeah, and then it jumps on again. This layering of color is quite interesting, and I use this quite a lot. I do like how this kind of really sets and gives depth to the work. Again, it's something that in a way requires a bit of time to sit and allow all the kind of the foreground, background, middle grounds all to kind of play off each other. And that's the advantage of the scrim and being able to see through the grid. So you kind of see I'll kind of jump around a little bit, experiment and just try something else. This will have stopped off at some point. I'll have come back and tried something different. And I'll often go back to this, and I do really like this kind of method of taking the scrim, basically, and by working it, I can actually have a nice play with the three-dimensionality of the image. And just for something really quite simple, there's quite a lot of flow and movement happening. And it looks more complex than what it is. That's the kind of trick with these. It's really quite simple. So here, again, as you probably picked up with the circles, these triangle pieces kind of are the cut-offs of these, and then reworked and reused here just to try and see what happens with breaking up the triangle and creating a layering. So it's a much more chaotic. It looks a little bit more chaotic anyway. But simplicity often works the best. Again, there's many layers of scrim has been laid down here. Another thing that I constantly revisit. I do like the density of the material, where you're trying to almost block out the background and not let anything come through, but allowing other areas to show through. So yeah, this jumped on a little bit again, back to cutting out circles, but this time just offsetting. And that created quite a dynamic, a lot of movement, a lot of kind of like playing with the three-dimensionality, the illusionary effect here. But again, quite a simple process, really. But it does take a matter of spending a bit of time with this, looking at these pieces. A lot of things happening. So yeah, there's probably things to be said about each piece and how it evolved, etc. But we could be here all day. So I'm going to just very swiftly move on through. Again, it's going back to this process, revisiting, obviously kind of like playing with the circle within the square. And again, the layering, what's happening visually here is really quite important. So they're almost sort of, some of these anyway, are quite meditative. You kind of like, have something to actually allow yourself to spend time looking at, just losing yourself in the work. And some are more successful at that than others. I don't have any particular kind of favorites of these pieces or what was more successful than others, because they all have their own kind of unique qualities, really. There's only a matter of if I thought I was trying to do something, whether I felt successful in it or not. But for the most part, this is just not to allow yourself to kind of get caught up on what's good and bad with this. It's about learning and just moving on and learning from that onto the next piece. Again, it's almost like it's not actually quite chaotic with this one, but it looks it, and then cutting and moving around and actually making this circle bring it all together. That's quite happening here. This is actually laid down quite chaotically and deliberately, but so it's more controlled than what it looks. And then they by bringing the circular form, it just offsets everything. It makes you really question what you're seeing. So yes, this kind of semi-fluorescent orange color is really quite bizarre, and it can be actually quite hard to look at for any length of time. And it's probably, in one way, better used in different ways than actually being so sort of dominant in this. So that's one of my thoughts on this. Again, is kind of like using these pieces to build up other structures that are happening, and sort of what is it that brings them all together. So again, using up all these mini cutout circles, but in a way it's got something really quite interesting is happening, because some of these are set on the top, or actually they're so thick that the scrim has got to sort of like fold over the top of it. It creates a raised mound, as it were. A bit of shadow in the background. So yeah, some interesting things happening. So there we are. That was the Book of Scrim, the first video in this series, I hope. And thank you for watching. Hopefully there will be others, and hopefully you will try and catch them. There's lots to see. Okay, thank you. Bye.